What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. Chance and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and we're here to talk some more Ravens talk and specifically focus on the AFC. Really excited to talk about the hodgepodge that is the AFC, because while we would love to be out in front, to me, for the drama, it's also kind of fun to see that there's a lot of contenders, a lot of things going on in the AFC right now, because it's so that makes it every week much less predictable and much more entertaining outside of the Ravens game. So we're going to get right into it. Basically, the frame of the show is going to be this: where we see the Ravens in that mix of teams, who we see as the number one seed coming out of the AFC into the playoffs, and talk about some dark horses. So before we get into it, Glenn, why don't you guys go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. And then if you're not, you've seen us a couple of times as well, hit the subscribe button, give us a like, leave your comments below, we'll interact with you. But Glenn, let's start here. What are the current standings in the AFC overall? Like, what does it look like from a playoff standpoint?
Absolutely. And I don't know if you have the ability, I'm not the most tech savvy.
Oh, you want me to pull it up on the screen?
Yeah, I think that would be perfect.
Sure,
but
I can do that.
And as you do that, I'll kind of, start laying the scene here. So, of course, the Tennessee Titans right now sit atop the AFC, the lone 6-win team in the AFC, sitting at 6-2, coming off of a big win against the Indianapolis Colts. However, they lost their most important player, their MVP, and maybe a guy who had a good shot at winning MVP of the league, although that award does typically go to a quarterback. They're certainly more vulnerable than they were last week. I mean, when you lose a guy like Derrick Henry, who is by far the best running back in the league, I don't think it's that close considering his workload and his production. That's going to hurt. And it's been proven that Tannehill is just a different player when he doesn't have Derrick Henry to hand the ball off to and play action fake to. So I feel like, they're 6-2, but they're certainly a team that is not immune from losing. They are not a team that really makes me think, wow, they have no shot. But then the Raiders, again, they're 5-2, really surging since the firing of or the resignation, I guess it is, of John Gruden.
Yeah, the mutual parting, right?
Yeah, but then of course they have another huge hit on their team, as Henry Ruggs is now gone from the team after he had the drunk driving where he unfortunately took someone's life. He's now off the team, and I don't think he's coming back anytime soon. And then you have the Baltimore Ravens sitting in third place in the AFC at 5-2, coming off their bye week. And we'll certainly get more into them. And then the Buffalo Bills right behind them at 5-2. And the Buffalo Bills are an interesting team, Jimbo, because when they play bad teams, they treat them as such and they blow the absolute doors off of them. But when they play good teams, at least thus far, it's been close or they've lost against those good teams. So, I mean, it's kind of that's the group 5-2 and better. And then, of course, right on their heels is the Cincinnati Bengals, who last time we saw them, they were losing to the Jets in an embarrassing fashion. But then the game before that, they handled the Ravens. So, Jimmy, I mean, what's your thoughts on the current standings right now? And do you like where the Ravens are positioned?
Yeah, so overall, and the cutoff, just so you guys know, of course, Glenn went to the Bengals, and then you got the Steelers and the Chargers. So as it is right now, that would be the cutoff. The Chargers would be the 7th team in. And so as far as my take on the standings, a lot of volatility, a lot of things are going to happen. One of the things I think that's important to mention, while the Tennessee Titans are at number 1, they've lost some stinkers this year, haven't they? I can't remember who exactly. I know that one loss that they had was an absolute black eye. And I'm not remembering right now who it was to.
Well, they lost to the Cardinals. They got absolutely destroyed week 1, 38-13 to the Cardinals. And
they lost to the Jets.
Lost to the Jets.
Yeah. That's what it was. They lost to the Jets. Man, you know what? Shout out to the Jets.
Got some good wins this year.
Yeah, shout out to the Jets for helping us out, man. So for me, my thoughts overall in the standings are this: every horse is in this race. There's not a single team to me that is above the other. A lot of people want to put the Bills there, but like you said, Glenn, look, it's going to get cold. I think they didn't have one last year, and they don't have really any sort of semblance of a running game this year. And say what you want. Josh Allen's incredible, but he also led the league last year and dropped interceptions. And so sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way. Sometimes it does. And so without a run game, if the ball doesn't bounce, so much is on his shoulders. If the ball doesn't bounce his way a couple times, that could be really detrimental to them. Not to say that we have much of a run game, but we certainly have more than them. So yeah, I mean, my thoughts overall, no team is out of this. The Chargers are in at 7th. As we know, I mean, we took care of business. But that was one heck of a football team.
Oh yeah.
And then the other thing is that there are teams outside looking in that, I mean, if you had to bet you at the beginning of the season, Glenn, that the Chiefs were going to be out of the playoff picture as it stands right now, going into week 8.
Yeah.
I mean, I would lose a lot of money. I'm sure that you might as well. That's just a crazy thing to think about. What do you feel about the overall standings right now?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the same can be said as not just the Chiefs, but also the Cleveland Browns. They're right behind them at 4-4, and really, I think most people were picking them as the most well-rounded roster in all of football. And now they're sitting at 500. The injuries continue to pile up. Now there's some off-the-field issues with their stud receiver Odell Beckham Jr., who is now away from the team, and Stefanski is operating as though he will not be a part of the Cleveland Browns moving forward. So. It's just been an incredible turn of events this year. I mean, I don't think anyone would have predicted that the Chiefs and the Browns would be on the outside looking at sitting at 500. Yeah, well,
no, even I didn't think that. Honestly,
yeah,
I didn't.
I mean, who would have? And then you talk about, I mean, there's the Patriots who, I mean, you can say what you want about them. Yeah, they got a rookie quarterback. They have some deficiencies, but they also have blown the doors off of a couple teams. They played Tom Brady right down to the very end, and if they could make a field goal, who knows how that game would have ended out. So this is really an AFC that, for the first time in a while, you could make a case for about 8 to 10 teams that could come out of the AFC when it's all said and done. I mean, we just don't know.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: the 7 that are in are the ones that we named.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to pick 1 or 2, I mean, really, you can pick any number you want. Of the 7, if you had to say today the teams that you feel most confident that will be out of it by the end of the season, who would those teams? Would any of them, be out of it for you, or do you see it being the same 7 at the end?
Well, if I had to pick anyone, it would probably be the lower 2 teams. So it would be the Chargers. While they started really hot, they had some very nice wins. Their last 2 games, they got destroyed by the Ravens, and then they lost to the Patriots. So they're certainly not heading in the right direction. 0-2 in their last 2 games, and then I know that the Steelers are certainly on the upswing and have won a few in a row. I'm still not willing to buy into them just yet. It's like it's confusing with them. It's like, was it good Steelers or bad Browns? Because I mean, it's hard to tell exactly what that was this last game where they beat the Browns 15-10. I'm not willing to buy into them yet. And then you look at the game before that, they beat a Seahawks team led by Geno Smith. I mean, I think we all agree if Russell Wilson's in that game, they likely, the Seahawks likely beat them. And then they beat the Broncos before that. I don't believe the Broncos are good at all. I think they're a bottom 5 team in the league, maybe bottom 10, if I'm being generous. And then the 3 games before that, they got handled by the Raiders, the Bengals, and the Packers. So I think those 2, and it makes sense, they're the bottom end of that, the standings there.
Yeah.
Those 2 better be worried, because the Chiefs, they're down and they're puzzling, and they'll make you look and just say, what the hell is going on with them right now? Because we expected them to be so good. But I wouldn't feel great as a Chargers fan looking down on the Chiefs. I would anticipate the Chiefs to at some point make some sort of a run. I'm sure it helps. They just traded for Melvin Ingram. That'll help their pass rush. But yeah, I would look for the Chiefs to make a push. And if the Browns has been better without Odell Beckham on the field than they have with Odell Beckham. So can we expect the same type of resurgence that we've seen in the years prior? When Odell goes down, they go on a rise, and their points per game go up. Their efficiency goes up. Baker plays a lot better and with a lot more confidence.
Yep.
So yeah, watch out for those 2 to make a push.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I'm going to make some bold claims here, and I need you to stick with me.
Okay.
The number 1 seed as of right now, the Tennessee Titans, will be outside looking in. I think the Colts, even though they just lost to them, I think the Colts win this division. The Colts have a lot of momentum in their sales, and it's about trending. You talked about that trending right now. To me, the Titans, based on injury, are trending in the wrong way.
No
Even
doubt.
though they have firepower, Derrick Henry is the straw that stirs that cup and or that drink, whatever the saying is. My point is that he's gone. He's a thing of the past. You don't replace Derrick Henry just with another running back just by snapping your fingers. So I think they're outside looking in. I think the Colts win it and gets them in. I don't think they're going to be number one overall seed. I also think that there's a chance, Glenn, that if I'm the Raiders, I know I agree with you. Trends, right? Like the Chargers aren't trending in the right direction. But man, that is one heck of a football team. And so I would be interested to see what the end result of the AFC West is, and to see if the Chargers can find a way to overtake the Raiders there. I've never been a believer in Derek Carr down at the end of the season, in crunch time, and so that would make me nervous as a Raiders fan. So my declaration is the following: I think the Colts get in. I think that there is a chance, while we have an extremely hard schedule, I think that the number one seed is possible. I'm not going to say that, we're the front runner for it. In fact, I think it would be very hard to say who is.
Yeah.
But I'll say that it is absolutely within our grasp. So I'm going to say that the Tennessee Titans are outside looking in, and you replace them with the Colts. I'm also going to say that I'm just going to go out because I feel good about it. I think the Raiders get in, but I think the Raiders and the Chargers swap.
Oh, okay. So no Chiefs.
Well, I think that you talked about it. I'm not a believer in the Steelers.
Gotcha.
And I think the Steelers and the Chiefs could same thing, do. And we could see 3 teams from the AFC West, just like we had in similar years from the AFC North. Just that was what last year.
Yeah,
right, last year. So that's how I think it'll break down. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. That's one of the things I love right now about the AFC. Like I said at the beginning, it's just entertaining to see what will happen. But let me ask you this really quickly, and we'll end on this. I'll answer this. I'll give you my thought, and I want to know yours. The likelihood of the Ravens getting the number one seed. We talked about in our midseason review the schedule coming up. And honestly, I haven't compared it to all the other team schedules, but I think you said strength of schedule, it's like 8th.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a tough road. But I will say that a 1 out of 10 or like a 0 to 100 percentage, I give the Ravens a more likely than not, so like a 65% chance of getting there. If you look at those AFC teams that are in the playoff picture right now, I think you could argue that the Ravens might be, maybe not, but you could argue it that they might be one of the most complete teams. If you take special teams, defense, and offense all in consideration, and formulate some sort of mathematical value, right? Like they might be the most overall, strong team, right? Like best team overall. So I think that gives them a lot of benefit moving down the stretch. So what is your take on the likelihood of them snatching that number one seed?
Yeah, I think they got a shot. I think the Tennessee Titans, I agree. I think they're going to have a bit of a tumble after losing Derrick Henry, and not only his production on the field, but also the psychological effect it'll have through the locker room. And then the Raiders, they're riding high right now, but at some point, I think these off-the-field issues start to become a distraction, and I think they take a bit of a tumble. To me, the Ravens have just as good a shot as any team in the AFC. I think their biggest obstacle and their biggest, the biggest challenger to that number one spot is probably the Buffalo Bills. And the reason I say that,
Patriots to come through, man.
I know we need the Pats to beat them, but they have a pretty relatively easy road in comparison to the Ravens. They got their next 2 games are at the Jaguars, then at the Jets, and they end the season at home against the Jets. So also, by the way, the game before that, they're at home against the Falcons. So when you look at their next 2 and their last 2, all 4 of those very winnable games. And then you have at the Saints, who just lost Jameis in there. I mean, they got the Panthers, who are really sliding in the wrong direction. So I think the Bills have the best shot to kind of take over that number one spot. And the funny thing is, we didn't even mention the Cincinnati Bengals. And, who knows what's going to happen when they're such a young team, and they've obviously shown they can win against anyone, and they can also lose to anyone with their loss to the Jets. So this AFC is really wide open, but I say this. I think the Ravens and the Bills are the 2 front runners, in my opinion. It's hard to say who's, higher, But I think the Ravens have just as good a shot, and if not better than anyone in the AFC to grab that number 1 spot.
Nice. Well, let us know your thoughts, guys. Leave all your comments below. How do you see the playoffs shaking out? And what do you think the Ravens' likelihood is of getting that number 1 spot? And we'll talk to you guys soon.